My name is Robin Grimes. I'm 31 years old, and I'm writing this from my apartment on Christmas night, not where I was supposed to be. I should have been at my boyfriend's parents' house, sitting at an overstuffed table pretending to enjoy pie, while his uncle played the accordion like he did every single year. Instead, I'm alone, shoes still on coat, draped over a chair, staring at my phone like it might explain how 5 years of my life ended between the mashed potatoes and the eggnog. It started like most disasters do, with a question that everyone thought was harmless. When are you two finally getting engaged? I was cornered in the kitchen by 3 of his aunts while refilling my wine glass. They weren't smiling. They never were when this topic came up. One blocked the doorway, another folded her arms, and the third tilted her head with that practiced look of concern that always felt more like judgment. "She's been waiting long enough," the oldest aunt said. "5 years is plenty of time," the second added. "What's the holdup?" the third asked flatly. I'd heard variations of this question at least 60 times over the years. Birthdays, holidays, random Sundays. Every gathering came with an interrogation, and every time I smiled, every time I softened it, "We're happy. We're taking things slow, when the time is right." What I never said was the truth. Across the room, Walter Avila. My boyfriend of 5 years was laughing with his cousins, completely unaware that once again I was being positioned as the woman afraid of commitment, the one dragging her feet, the one wasting their precious boy's time. Something inside me snapped. Maybe it was the wine. Maybe it was Christmas. Maybe it was the memory of every proposal I'd swallowed quietly so he wouldn't have to answer for them. But when the oldest aunt crossed her arms and said, "Honestly, Robin, don't you love him enough to move forward?" I heard my own voice answer before I could stop it. "That's a great question." They blinked, surprised I wasn't deflecting. "I've actually proposed 3 times," I said calmly. Walter said no, every time. Silence slammed into the room. I kept going because once the truth started, it demanded to be finished. First time was 2 years in. Second was on his birthday last year. Third was 8 months ago. He asked me not to tell anyone because he said it was embarrassing. The music in the living room stopped. Conversations died mid-sentence. I realized too late that my voice had carried. Walter appeared in the doorway, confusion already shifting into panic. "What's going on?" All 3 aunts turned to him. "You said no one asked," slowly. 3 times. The color drained from his face. He looked at me like I'd betrayed him, like I'd broken a rule he never should have been allowed to write in the first place. "That's not," he started. "She's exaggerating." "I have the receipts," I said quietly, "and the texts where you asked me not to give up on you." That was the moment I knew Christmas was over. I didn't wait for his mother to arrive, or for explanations to spiral. I went to the bedroom, grabbed my coat, and when Walter followed me crying, whispering that we could talk privately, I shook my head. "We already did," I said, 3 times. And for the first time in 5 years, I chose myself. I didn't go home right away after I walked out. I sat in my car in the driveway engine, off hands, still on the steering wheel, listening to muffled laughter and music leaking through the walls of a house I'd spent 5 years trying to belong to. My phone buzzed once, then again. Walter's name lit up the screen over and over. I didn't answer. Not because I was trying to be dramatic, but because I already knew what he would say. He would tell me I blindsided him, that I embarrassed him, that I should have protected him better, and I couldn't carry that weight anymore. 5 years earlier, I would have apologized first. I would have explained myself. I would have tried to soften the truth until it fit neatly into his comfort. That version of me didn't exist anymore. I met Walter at a mutual friend's barbecue. It was ordinary in the best way. Plastic chairs, cheap beer smoke, drifting from an overworked grill. We talked for hours, like we'd known each other longer than a single afternoon. He was charming without trying too hard, thoughtful, in a way that felt sincere and attentive, in a way that made me feel seen. When he asked for my number, I didn't hesitate. When he texted the next morning, neither did I. We moved in together after 18 months. Nothing dramatic, just a natural next step. We split rent unevenly because I earned more, furnished the apartment together, learned each other's rhythms. I thought we were building something steady, something real. When his family welcomed me with open arms, at first I took it as a good sign. I showed up. Every holiday, every birthday. I brought wine, helped set up folding tables, listened politely to the same stories year after year. I didn't just date Walter, I dated his entire family. The first proposal happened 2 years in. I'd spent 4 months saving, quietly cutting back on everything unnecessary. I bought a ring that felt like him, understated, elegant, not flashy. I made a reservation at his favorite restaurant, rehearsed what I would say, felt my heart pounding so hard I thought it might actually give me away before I even knelt down. When I asked him, his eyes filled with tears. He said he loved me. He hugged me so tightly I thought he might say yes, just from the force of it. But he didn't. "I'm not ready," he said softly. "I just need more time." I was crushed, but I believed him. We were still young. Love wasn't a deadline, I told myself. I swallowed. The disappointment returned the ring and told myself patience was a virtue. The second proposal was a year later on his birthday. I'd upgraded the ring, traded in the first one, added more savings. I rented a cabin for the weekend, lit candles, cooked dinner myself because I wanted it to feel intimate. He cried again, said all the right things, and then said no again. "I love you so much," he whispered. "I just don't feel like we're there yet." I remember staring at him, nodding, telling him I understood, while something inside me quietly fractured. Still, I stayed. I told myself love meant giving people space to grow. The third proposal wasn't dramatic. No ring, no trip, just us on the couch. One quiet night, the kind where the world feels far away, I looked at him and said, "I want to spend my life with you. Will you marry me?" He didn't cry that time. He just looked sad. "I can't," he said. "Not yet. Please don't give up on us." That was 8 months ago. 8 months of holidays and gatherings where his family treated me like I was the one dragging my feet, like I was afraid of commitment, like I was wasting his time. And every single time I let it happen, because he asked me to. "Don't tell anyone," he'd said after each rejection. "They'll make it weird." So I made myself small. I lied by omission. I let his aunts corner me. Let his parents look at me with thinly veiled disappointment. Let strangers ask when I was finally going to make an honest man out of him. I became the villain in a story where I had been the only one willing to commit. And standing in that kitchen on Christmas Eve with his family demanding answers, something inside me finally refused to bend. By the time I pulled into my apartment parking lot that night, my phone showed 32 missed messages. I turned it face down and went inside. I poured a glass of water, sat on the edge of the bed, and felt the weight of 5 years settle into a single, undeniable truth. I hadn't lost him that night. I'd lost myself long before. I slept maybe 2 hours that night, if you could even call it sleep. My mind kept replaying the moment Walter's face went pale in the kitchen, the way his first instinct wasn't guilt or accountability, but fear. Fear of being exposed. When morning finally came, it didn't feel like Christmas. It felt like the aftermath of something that had been breaking for a long time. My phone was still face down when I woke up. 32 missed messages had turned into 48. Most from Walter, a few from his mother, one from his father. I read his father's first. "Robin, I don't know what happened last night, but I'm sorry things escalated the way they did. I hope you're okay." That message hit harder than all the others combined. No accusation, no demand, just concern. I stared at it for a long time before putting the phone back down. Walter's messages were all over the place. "I can't believe you did that to me. You humiliated me in front of my entire family. I was going to say yes. You ruined everything. Please call me. We need to talk. I love you. This can't be how it ends." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't care, but because I finally understood something I'd been refusing to see every time things got uncomfortable. Walter retreated into intention. I was going to. I planned to. I meant to. Meanwhile, I was living in action. I was the one proposing, the one waiting, the one absorbing the fallout. By noon, his mother added me to a group text with several of his relatives. I should have left immediately. I didn't. Curiosity is a dangerous thing. "We need to have a calm, adult conversation about what happened," she wrote. "Whatever issues you two had should not have been aired in front of the family." I took a breath before responding. With respect, I typed, "Your family has been questioning my commitment publicly for 5 years. I handled it privately until I couldn't anymore." One of his aunts replied almost instantly, "We were just looking out for him. We didn't know." "You didn't know because Walter asked me to keep quiet," I wrote. "I'm not the villain here." The word apologize appeared more times than I could count. Apologize for embarrassing him. Apologize for causing a scene. Apologize for telling the truth at the wrong time. I left the group chat and blocked his mother's number. That's when the flying monkeys arrived. His best friend texted me asking me to please talk to him because he was a mess. A cousin I actually liked said Walter wasn't eating, that he was spiraling. His brother, a man who'd barely spoken to me in 5 years, accused me of ambushing Walter and pressuring him into marriage. I made one mistake, I replied to his brother. What's his side exactly, I asked. He said Walter felt trapped, that I'd been pushing him for years, that I should have waited. I stared at the screen, stunned by how easily the narrative flipped. I replied once more calmly with facts. 3 proposals, 3 rejections, years of silence to protect him. He never responded. On the 3rd day, Walter showed up at my apartment. I wasn't going to open the door. I swear I wasn't. But he started knocking louder, and then the neighbors' doors opened, and I didn't want a scene. I cracked the door open with the chain still on. He looked wrecked. Red eyes, unwashed hair, wearing the same sweater from Christmas. Can I come in? He asked. Please. We can talk like this, I said. He called me cold. Said he couldn't believe I'd shut him out after 5 years. I reminded him quietly that he'd shut me out 3 times when it mattered most. That's when he finally said it. I was scared, he admitted. My parents' marriage is a disaster. I didn't want us to become that. I waited for the part where he explained why he never told me that. Why he let me keep proposing anyway. Why he let his family blame me. It never came. Instead, he said I didn't want to lose you. And that was the moment I realized the truth. He wasn't afraid of marriage. He was afraid of losing the comfort of having me without committing to me. When I told him I was done, really done, his tone changed. He asked about the apartment, the lease, the furniture, the life we'd built. I told him I'd buy out my portion, that he could stay. He said he couldn't afford it alone. That's not my problem anymore, I said. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me, like I'd become someone else overnight. But I hadn't changed. I just stopped abandoning myself. Once Walter realized tears weren't going to pull me back in, he tried something else. Control dressed up as practicality. What about the lease, he asked, standing in the hallway, with his hands shoved into his pockets like he was the reasonable one now. We just renewed it in September. 8 months left. You can't just walk away from that. I'm not walking away, I said. I'll buy out my portion. His jaw tightened. You know I can't afford this place alone. That sentence had saved him more times than I could count over the years. It was always my problem when something became inconvenient. His fear, his timing, his finances. I'd been cushioning his landing for 5 years, and he'd grown used to the idea that I always would. That sounds like something you'll need to figure out, I said evenly. He looked at me like I'd slapped him. This isn't the woman I fell in love with, he whispered. I almost laughed. Almost. The woman he fell in love with proposed 3 times and accepted being told no. She covered for him. She absorbed blame. She shrank. Of course he didn't recognize me anymore. After he left, I emailed the landlord, explained the situation calmly, professionally, asked what my options were. The response came back the next morning. Painful but clear. I could surrender my portion of the lease without Walter's signature. It would cost me about $6,400. It hurt to read that number. It hurt worse to realize I was willing to pay it just to be free. When Walter found out I'd started the process without him, he lost it. He showed up at my office. Not texted, not called, showed up during work hours. I was in a meeting when security called my desk. There's a man in the lobby asking for you. He's very upset. By the time I got downstairs, he was pacing, voice raised, eyes wild, talking about how I was abandoning him, how I was ruining his life. People stared. Someone whispered. Security escorted him out. My manager pulled me aside afterward, concern etched across her face. Everything okay at home? Breaking up with my boyfriend of 5 years, I said quietly. She nodded. Let me know if this becomes a pattern. We'll involve HR. That was the moment it really hit me. His refusal to accept no was now threatening my job. The same man who said he just needed time had no respect for my boundaries once I stopped waiting. Then came the spreadsheet. An actual spreadsheet emailed late one night. Itemized. Every piece of furniture we'd bought together. Kitchenware, lamps, even gifts his parents had given us. At the bottom, $3,200 owed. I stared at it in disbelief. I replied with one sentence. I'll take the TV and couch since I paid for them. You can keep everything else. We're even. His response came fast. You always were cheap. Cheap. I closed my laptop and sat in the dark, letting that word hang in the air. Cheap after 3 engagement rings. After paying 60% of the rent because he made less. After years of emotional labor that never showed up on a spreadsheet. I didn't reply. By then, the pattern was undeniable. This wasn't grief. This was entitlement. He wasn't mourning the loss of me. He was furious that the rules had changed without his permission. I moved my essentials into a friend's spare room that weekend, left most of the furniture behind. It wasn't worth the fight. Let him keep the couch. I was keeping my self-respect. The lease paperwork moved forward, slowly, painfully. but forward. And for the first time since Christmas, I noticed something strange. I could breathe. The lease situation dragged on longer than it needed to, mostly because Walter refused to cooperate. He ignored emails from the landlord, delayed signatures, and sent me long messages about how unfair I was being. Every delay felt intentional, like he believed inconvenience might wear me down enough to make me come back. It didn't. The landlord eventually gave us both an ultimatum: resolve it or face eviction proceedings that would damage both our rental histories. Only then did Walter finally sign. Not quietly, not without commentary. He sent me a 3-page email first. 3 pages detailing how I'd ruined his life, how I'd stolen his future, how I'd proven he was right not to marry someone so cold and vindictive. 3 pages of blame, victimhood, and self-pity. Not a single sentence acknowledging his role in any of it. I didn't respond. Around that time, the pressure from his family suddenly stopped. No more texts, no more indirect messages through friends, no more guilt-laced concern disguised as advice. I heard later through my friend, who still talked to one of his cousins, why. Apparently his grandmother had spoken up. She proposed 3 times, she'd said. He said no 3 times. That's not her fault. That's his. Stop embarrassing yourselves. I'd never met her grandmother more than a handful of times, but in that moment she felt like an unexpected ally. Someone in that family finally said out loud what I'd been living quietly for years. The workplace incident wasn't the last time Walter tried to cross a line. He showed up again a week later, this time trying to enter through the parking garage. Building security recognized his car and stopped him before he could get inside. I filed an incident report. I didn't ask for a restraining order. I didn't think he was dangerous, just desperate. But I needed a paper trail. I needed proof that I wasn't imagining how far he was willing to go once he lost control. My own family found out around then. His mother had called my mother, telling her I'd humiliated Walter and destroyed a 5-year relationship over hurt feelings. My mom asked one question. Did he reject her proposals 3 times? There was silence on the other end. Well, then my mother said, it sounds like he destroyed it. She called me immediately after. She wasn't angry. She was furious at him. Robin, she said, you stayed too long. That's not love. That's endurance. Hearing that from someone who knew me better than anyone felt like a release, like permission to stop questioning myself. Financially, the damage was real. Between breaking the lease, losing deposits, and moving costs, I was down almost $5,000. It stung. But every time I felt tempted to regret it, I reminded myself what staying would have cost me instead. My peace, my dignity, my future. By the end of the 2nd week, I'd stopped responding to everyone in Walter's orbit. No more explanations. No more defending my choices. Anyone who still believed his version of events wasn't actually interested in the truth. And that clarity, as painful as it was, felt like progress. 3 weeks after Christmas, everything finally went quiet. The lease was resolved. The apartment was no longer my responsibility. The furniture was no longer my problem. The shared life we'd built over 5 years had been dismantled into paperwork, emails, and a handful of boxes in my friend's spare room. It wasn't the clean ending I once imagined, but it was an ending. Walter sent one last message after the 2nd office incident. I hope you're happy, he wrote. You've turned everyone against me. My family thinks I'm a liar. My friends don't know what to believe. You could have handled this quietly, and instead you chose to destroy me. I'll never forgive you. I read it twice before replying. I proposed 3 times. You said no 3 times. I kept quiet to protect you. Your family cornered me and demanded answers. I told the truth. Everything that happened after that is a consequence of your choices, not mine. I didn't destroy you. Your fear of commitment and your inability to be honest did. Please don't contact me again. Then I blocked his number, everywhere, for real this time. A week later, one of his friends reached out. Different tone, softer. She told me Walter had started therapy, that he understood now how badly he'd handled things. He wasn't asking me to take him back. He just wanted to apologize in person, for closure. I thought about it longer than I expected to. Part of me wanted to hear it, wanted to see him take responsibility, wanted proof that the last 5 years hadn't been built entirely on self-deception. But another part of me knew something important. An apology wouldn't give me back the years I spent waiting. It wouldn't erase 3 rejections. It wouldn't undo the way I learned to make myself smaller just to keep someone who never fully chose me. So I declined. I wish him well in therapy, I wrote back, but I don't need his apology for closure. I found that when I walked out on Christmas. She never responded. I found a new apartment shortly after. A small 1-bedroom. Nothing fancy. But it's mine. No shared closets. No ghosts of proposals past. The financial hit still hurts. It'll take a few months to rebuild my savings, but I wake up without dread now, without wondering if today will finally be the day someone decides I'm enough. My therapist said something during our third session that changed everything. You spent 5 years waiting for someone to choose you while they actively chose uncertainty, she said. That's not patience. That's self-abandonment. Self-abandonment. I did that. Every time I proposed again after being rejected. Every time I smiled through his family's questions. Every time I defended him instead of myself. I'm not angry at Walter anymore. He was afraid, and he handled that fear poorly. But fear doesn't excuse keeping someone in limbo for 5 years. It doesn't excuse letting others take the blame for your indecision. Last week, his father sent me a short message. I'm sorry my family put you in that position. You deserve better. I hope you find someone who doesn't make you wait. I didn't reply, but I appreciated it. So that's where I am now, a 5-year relationship behind me. 3 proposals, 1 very public ending, and finally some peace. If there's one thing I've learned, it's this: someone who wants to be with you will show you. Not with promises of someday or when I'm ready, but with action. If you're always the one proposing,